There's a secret or hidden mystery layer encoded within the scriptures. It's called the Sod layer in Hebrew, which means the secret or hidden meaning. In fact, it's the fourth out of four possible meanings. The first being the literal meaning, the second being the hinted meaning or implied, the third being the sermon or applicable meaning, and the fourth is that secret Sod hidden mystery layer, that Holy Spirit revelation. The clue's hidden in plain sight. Check it out. So let's take this concept and see if we can find out who the Messiah is, aside from the Bible just saying it's Jesus. To really get to know somebody, you have to examine their heart, what's important to them, and what they're always pointing you towards. What patterns do they keep showing us? What pattern does Yahweh keep showing us? From the beginning, he's really drawing your attention to the cross. Just look at his name for starters, Yahweh, in the ancient Hebrew pictogram. Paleo-Hebrew, the meaning is behold, nail, behold, hand. Seems to be pretty clear. Also sticking with the Paleo-Hebrew, the first and the last, which would in Greek later be the Alpha and Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, that has its own Sod meaning. The Aleph is the bull, the leader, the sacrifice. The Tav is the cross. So who is the Aleph Tav? It's the leader who would be sacrificed on the cross. Move on to the next clue. Why are the instructions for the tabernacle to be laid out in the shape of a cross? Why is the Passover door with the lamb's blood, where the blood makes the shape of a cross? Especially with the representation of what the blood of the lamb is. People that believe in God agree that he made the stars and the stars tell a story, which is called the Mazaroth in Hebrew. So why does the sun die on the cross for 3 days and then rise again? It dies on the southern cross of the sky. It gets to its lowest degree where it remains for 3 days and then it starts rising again. The sun, the bridegroom coming out of its chamber, represents the Messiah, the sun. Sticking with this cross pattern, the cross, wood being a tree, it was all lost on a tree in the Garden of Eden, and it was all gained back on a tree with the theology of the cross. Also with the pattern of fruit being on the tree, and then Jesus hanging on the tree like a piece of fruit to redeem, and then even becoming the first fruits of resurrection, which is what the New Testament calls him. This is also reflected in the Old Testament with Moses holding up the serpent on the cross. The bronze serpent on the tree in the wilderness where anyone looks at it would be healed, representing the judgment of the serpent in the tree, again a flashback to Genesis, and a foreshadowing to the future Messiah. And even super fast forward to the ending in Revelation, you see the trees again. Also, who's Isaiah's pierced Messiah, the one who was pierced for many, who basically paid for the transgressions of many by being pierced? And what about the prophet Daniel's timing, where he basically gave a timetable that laid out pretty much the exact time that Yeshua, Jesus, was here? Speaking of timing, we'll retouch on Mazaroth and astrological ages, which is represented by the age of the Jews going to the age of the Christians, by the age of the ram going to the age of Pisces, Aries the ram going to Pisces the fish, symbol for Christianity. This also happened about 2,000 years ago, the changing of this age, when Jesus was here. This also coincides with the Dead Sea Essene scroll calendar of the arrival of the Messiah. Back to the cross and the timing of the cross, the veil was torn from top to bottom and also left the Jews with no way anymore to atone for their sins. It almost seems like the God of this changed the whole way he wanted to be approached. Also, there was an earthquake and supernatural darkening at the time of the crucifixion, and accounts of dead people getting up and walking around coming out of their graves, seen by over 500 eyewitnesses, which would easily pass in any modern court of law. Also, with the temple then being destroyed, with no place to worship or atone for sins or that system, seems like it was fulfilled, and a new one began, that didn't get away with the old one, but fulfilled into a new one. This is also told in the Mazaroth story, which you can find more on my page, and ties back in with the blood of the lamb and the Passover door, full circle. This blood of the lamb completing the bloodline mystery from Adam to Jesus, the first Adam to the second Adam, according to the scriptures. So the story is complete, where now we're all children of Yeshua basically, the holy adopted royal bloodline redeemed by the blood of the lamb. That's why in Revelation, Jesus says he will be our Father, and we enter and overcome because of his blood. Also, all the disciples were tortured and went to the grave and never recanted or renounced the Messiah. This is all historically documented. Also, John couldn't be killed, boiled in oil, and lots of other legends. Some people think he's still alive and could be coming back as one of the two witnesses. I'm not saying I believe that, but I have heard that theory. Future video plug, or at least tie-in, on the identity of the two witnesses. I'm not even going to add other research angles here, because remember this is a Sod study. But other angles you can find yourself, like the number of prophecies fulfilled by Jesus and how that's the equivalent basically to a monkey sitting at a typewriter and recreating the entire works of Shakespeare, mathematically. Things like there's thousands of original dated manuscripts and more of those manuscripts than any other copies that we accept as valid. And other avenues of research like The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, which they made a movie about, which was an investigative journalist set out to disprove it and ended up believing it. Lots of evidence in there. Could the resurrection of Christ be upheld in a modern court of law based on evidence? Could it? So again, in this Sod mystery hidden level study, Why does everything from the stars to one of the earliest languages, the ancient Hebrew pictogram, the identity of this God, all ancient texts, time itself, the meaning of the Aleph and Tav, aside from Yahweh's name, Isaiah's pierced Messiah with Daniel's timing, the constant showing of the cross in the Old Testament by Yahweh, the changing of the astrological ages at the time of Yeshua? You tell me, who's the identity of Messiah?